Welcome to Disability Resource and Information Training Level 1, Module 1. This training is made available through the Disability Employment Initiative Round 5 grant, or more commonly known as the DEI Project, that Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services was one of the implementation sites for. This training was originally developed by the Alaska DEI Project and was modified by CMJTS staff. We hope you enjoy the training. I am Leslie Witowitz, the Development Manager here at Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services.
And I'm Tara Brooks, Disability Resource Coordinator for Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services.
We would like you to take a moment and write down what you hope to learn today. And if you do not get your questions answered or you didn't learn what you were expecting to, please feel free to email Tara or myself to ensure that we get you the information you are seeking.
Why should I receive DRI training? On the next slide, you'll learn about the benefits of DRI training. From this training, we want you to be knowledgeable in the below areas: disability etiquette, universal access, reasonable accommodations, Americans with Disabilities Act, and awareness of various disabilities. The Section 1 learning objectives are to know the practices that promote effective American Job Center services/programs for people with disabilities, to understand the WIOA regulation, Section 188, for American Job Center customers with disabilities, and lastly, to understand how the Disability Employment Initiative assists with the implementation of WIOA regulation, Section 188, in American Job Centers.
The definition of a disability, according to Merriam-Webster, is that a disability is a physical, mental, cognitive, or developmental condition that impairs, interferes with, or limits a person's ability to engage in certain tasks or actions or participate in typical daily activities and interactions. To truly understand, we need to go back in history. We need to look at how people with disabilities were viewed and treated. We can look at how far we have come, but yet how far we still have to go. We will be looking at the following: ancient era, the 17th and 18th centuries, the rise of the institutions, the awakening, as well as reviewing the key legislative advancements made to date. The ancient era. This was the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, and Reformation times. People with disabilities were often referred to as being inferior or called an idiot or a fool. These people were often treated cruelly. There were cities of the damned, made up of deviants and incurables. There was a ship of fools. People with disabilities were put on this ship and displayed from port to port for entertainment, and eventually abandoned. Begging was a necessity for survival. As noted on the slide, some of the solutions were abandonment, death, or these people were used for entertainment. The 17th and 18th centuries, also referred to as the Age of Confusion and the Seeds of Change. The pervasive attitude of the time remained about the same, that people with disabilities needed to be kept out of trouble and were mainly for entertainment purposes. However, at some point during the 18th century, there was a shift to the Enlightenment. Influential thinkers such as John Locke believed that people with disabilities were capable of learning, and they began to educate them. The time frame from 1800 to 1950 was known as the rise of the institutions. It was common practice of the 19th century to warn out people with disabilities, which was the opposite of welcoming to people with disabilities. They were shunned and discouraged from settling in town and were often transported to another town. In 1848, it was the beginning of the public institutions. They were created to train, teach, socialize, and self-help. The focus was on life as a resident and not part of the community. People with disabilities were segregated and sterilized. People with disability were referred to as idiotic, feeble-minded, idiots, and morons. From 1950 to 1980 was called the Awakening. The power of the parents began as a national movement. 30 years of parent advocacy focused on winning civil and legal rights for their children. Legislation has improved. Famous people became public about family members with disabilities. President Kennedy's sister Rosemary had a disability. Her family was very outspoken about it. A lobotomy was suggested and carried out in 1941 to calm her mood swings. This had a profound effect on her family. Her sister Eunice helped to initiate the Special Olympics in 1962. It has been pointed out that people with perceived abnormalities have provided a source of entertainment to non-disabled people throughout history. From blind musicians in ancient Egypt and deformed slaves as entertainers in Greece and Rome, through the court jesters and fools of medieval Europe, right up to the freak shows and exhibitions of the industrial era. Our looking at the diseased and disabled is really just a voyeurism of sorts. Attitudes have thankfully moved on from the ways that people with disabilities were viewed in the past. Just how much, however, is a matter for debate. In the tradition of the Elephant Man, people with disabilities were often employed as sideshow exhibits or in a traveling circus. How much of this was for slavery, and how much was resignation in an attempt at empowerment or at least financial independence, is also a subject of debate. These photos depict how people with disabilities were exploited. A movie that came out in 2017, The Greatest Showman, was based on the life of P.T. Barnum, was a timely celebration of outsiderness and inclusivity with its bearded women, tattooed men, little people, and conjoined twins. The movie fantasized Barnum just a bit by stating that his belief was what makes you different makes you special. The real-life P.T. Barnum was not exactly a crusader for social justice. Like many peddlers of the 19th century freak shows, Barnum was more interested in exploiting people than empowering them. If The Greatest Showman is a cheerleader for outsiders and atoning for the sins of the sideshow, that can only be good. But let's not airbrush history. Let's learn from it. As I mentioned earlier, it is good to have a clear understanding of where we've been, see how far we've come, and know how far we have yet to go. To demonstrate the power of the people and the influence they have had is shown through these legislative advancements. Significant progress has been made towards inclusiveness and accessibility in schools, recreation areas, restaurants, hospitals, stores, in public transportation, in housing, and the workplace. And the language of the times is people first language.
Now we're going to watch a disability sensitivity training video. This video does have humor in it, so please feel free to laugh.
Good morning, Bob.
Morning there, big man. Morning, Alice!
There's no need to be awkward.
Poor Bob. Like so many of us, he just doesn't know how to interact with people with disabilities.
It's pretty easy, really. People with disabilities are people first.
We need the same things that every person needs, like respect.
Good morning, everyone.
Attention!
Okay. Maybe we need to be more specific.
The easiest way to show respect is to focus on the person, not the disability. It's okay. You'll get the hang of it.
One easy way to focus on the person is to watch the person signing and not their interpreter.
Or their companion.
It's really cool that you'd like to help, but do us both a favor and please ask me first. What you think might be helping?
I got you.
Wait, ah! Oh no, might actually not.
If you'd like to offer me help, let me hold on to your elbow. Don't take mine.
Hey, would you like to take my arm?
Sure.
Assistive devices help us to live our lives. They're really important and really personal.
Grabbing them only makes it weird for everyone.
What?
Please only touch our devices and service animals if we've given you permission. And don't take it personally if I ask you not to. Remember that my service animal helps me all the time. Neither of us would like it if we were separated.
Remember, we make our own decisions. We sign documents, vote, volunteer, work, and pay taxes.
We get married.
So don't address me just because I have a great smile.
Just because I'm blind.
May I help you?
Does not mean I'm deaf.
Just because I'm deaf doesn't mean I'm blind.
And just because I use a wheelchair doesn't mean that I can't sweep you off your feet.
So take a deep breath, relax. We don't bite.
Unless we're really hungry.
Hello there, ladies. How are you?
Hello. And if you're not sure what to do, just ask.
Hi, would you still like to see a menu?
No thanks, but can you please read it to me?
Sure, definitely.
Just treat us the way you would want to be treated, and we'll all be okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Alice.
Morning.
Awkward no more. Nice job, Bob. Go forth and be human.
There's no need to be awkward.
The Pacer Center started in 1977. It began with one project, Parents Helping Parents. 30 years and 30 programs later, Pacer is still staffed primarily by parents of children with disabilities, dedicated to educating other parents and improving the lives of families and children. CMJTS and other partners through the Disability Employment Initiative grant work in collaboration in helping youth with disabilities. Now we're going to watch a video about people first language and disability etiquette. There are no words spoken during this video, but it is still impactful. Please follow along. This slide will address people-first language. It is always important when communicating with someone to use their name. If you do reference a disability, instead of saying, "You're retarded," say, "He has a cognitive disability." Instead of saying, "autistic," say, "She has autism." Instead of saying, "emotionally disturbed" or "mentally ill," say, "He has a mental health condition or diagnosis." Instead of saying, "wheelchair" or "wheelchair bound," say, "She uses a wheelchair or mobility chair." Instead of saying, "special education student," say, "He receives special education services." Instead of saying, "developmentally delayed," say, "She has a developmental delay." Instead of saying, "normal or healthy kids," say, "children without disabilities." Instead of saying, "doesn't talk," say, "She communicates with her eyes or device," or etc. Instead of saying, "birth defect," say, "He has a congenital disability." Instead of saying, "brain damaged," say, "She has a brain injury." The National Disability Institute provided technical assistance for the Disability Employment Initiative grant. The National Disability Institute's Real Economic Impact Network is an alliance of organizations and individuals dedicated to a common mission, the economic advancement of people with disabilities. Please feel free to visit this website at the link on this slide. Welcome to the Disability Employment Initiative community. This site is an online resource destination to support the 18 grantees implementing the Disability Employment Initiative, otherwise known as DEI grant. Throughout the country, there are approximately 70 disability resource coordinators serving on the front lines in coordination with state project leads to help strengthen the capacity of American job centers to increase employment opportunities for people with disabilities. We sincerely welcome all visitors to this site in an effort to highlight the work we do and promote the lessons learned to further increase the prosperity of people with disabilities. Please feel free to create and register an account on the Disability Employment Initiative website. Section 188 of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act encompasses promising practices in achieving universal access and equal opportunity. This slide focuses on confidentiality of medical information. The Reasonable Accommodation Policy states, medical information obtained in connection with such requests is collected and maintained on separate forms and in separate physical or electronic files from non-medical personnel files and records. Electronic copies of medical information obtained in connection with the reasonable accommodation process is stored so that access is limited to only the agency ADA coordinator. Physical copies of such medical information is stored in a locked cabinet or office when not in use or unattended. Generally, medical documentation obtained in connection with the reasonable accommodation process should only be reviewed by the ADA coordinator. For more information on Section 188, please visit the link on this page. Under Minnesota State Plan in Section 188, each workforce center has the means to communicate with persons who are deaf or hard of hearing, either with a text telephone device or by using the Minnesota Relay System by dialing 711 anywhere in the state. All workforce centers are equipped with computer software and equipment to help participants who are blind, visually impaired, or have other physical or cognitive impairments to access computer programs, websites, and read printed materials. Assistive technology that is available in the workforce centers includes closed captioning TV at some locations, Pocket Talker, JAWS, Zoom Text, and Ubi Duo. The list of Minnesota Workforce Center contact information is available on DEED's external website. TTY numbers or Minnesota Relay information are included.
The Reception and Resource Area Certification Program, better known as the RRACP, is a detailed training that provides consistency of services and expectations for Workforce Center staff. If you have not completed this training, I highly encourage you to do so.